It could have been a century ago, 100 mounted uniformed soldiers heading through the countryside on their way to war. The riders reenacting the original journey done by the Canterbury Mounted Rifles, many high country stockmen who ended up fighting at Gallipoli. The landscape helping evoke haunting memories.
And it was this eerie silence, and we looked around, not a breath of wind. The sky was crystal clear, and it just felt like the ghosts were watching us.
The day began at the World War I Memorial at the Peaks, an isolated spot in inland North Canterbury. Among today's riders, serving soldiers from Australia and New Zealand. Definitely not forgotten, 18 of the group are direct descendants of members of the Canterbury Mounted Rifles from World War I.
And in the morning, we will remember them.
Right wheel!
With a magnificent backdrop, the troop made their way past the sail yards of Harden and towards Waikari, the same route their forebears had done on their way to war. The Canterbury Mounted Rifles went to Gallipoli without their horses. They stayed in Egypt, while their riders fought as infantrymen. 528 men went, more than half died. Not a single South Island horse returned. Their riders were ordered to shoot them. Jeff Hampton, 3 News.
Hello, I'm Christopher Archer. Recently I travelled to the North Canterbury township of Harden, where I met Terry and Nikki, who have been working with horses and men in a voluntary group that celebrate and commemorate the Canterbury Mounted Rifles. They are now about to begin on a big project to present the story of the whole Mounted Rifles Brigade, who fought in Palestine and also in the Sinai Desert during World War I. I've asked them to tell you their story. Classic couple who are now working on the history of the New Zealand Mounted Rifle Brigade, and they've been involved now for about 5 years in different parts, organising these things, and an amazing series of exploits with their horses and with filming. So I'm going to ask Terry and Nikki some questions, and the first thing, Terry, I wanted to know what's your background in the military?
Well, I did 10 years in the armed services as a young lad, and my training in the armed services was actually, I was a logistics and driver and transport, so that was my initial training and background. And then I moved into the UN doing work for rescue coordinations in war zones of children and families and that. And also I was also the organiser and also training officer in the Alpine Cliff Rescue, mines rescue and cave rescues on the west coast of the South Island. So again, my job was more into the training and getting everyone, and yes, I had a few broken bones when I was on active service. Then I moved into film productions, which I was involved in Vertical Limit, which was filmed in Queenstown. And again, I was a assistant unit manager there, where again it was all in logistics, making sure we're on time, no days lost of shooting and all that sort of activities. After that job, I moved into the Lord of the Rings, where I was involved in the horses, and also the logistics of feeding them and making sure that we had enough feed throughout the South Island, shifting them all around, transportation and all that. So that's just briefly the outline. Then, as I say, after a period of illness, I popped into doing major concerts, which was with Hangout Productions of Christchurch. And my job was to set up the big mobile stages, have everything going all on time, and because we were on a very tight budget, we had to stick and be really conscious. Time was an element to make sure there was no overruns or anything so into that. And then finally, when I came to retirement age, I started the Anzac 100 Years, 100 Horses Centennial for Anzac Day. Now, my first big one, which is the 100 Years, 100 Horses, we started here in North Canterbury, and of course, both Nikki and I, we found it quite a daunting challenge. We had no support from anyone. It all came out of Nikki and I's own pocket. We worked extremely hard for over 12 months to train over 120 riders to take part, and then we gradually whittled it down because we wanted to keep it as authentic as possible. So we weeded it out, and when we went out that gate on the Anzac Day 2015, we had exactly 100 riders on horseback, the dawn service at the peaks, and then 20 kilometres later we had the main service in Waikari.
Excellent. While you're thinking about it, I'm going to ask you to describe the project that you're currently involved in, but I want to ask Nikki, why do you think it's important, Nikki, that we recall and remember the mounted rifles?
It's important to remember our history, and in New Zealand we're not very good at remembering our history. And for World War One, it's really important to look at what happened, so that in the future we don't repeat those mistakes. If we don't look at the past, we don't learn and we don't step forward with better ideas.
So tell us about your current project, Terry.
Well, the current project is the story between the New Zealand Mounted Rifles, which is the Canterbury Mounted Rifles, and the 7th Light Horse in Australia. Because these two regiments had quite a common link throughout the whole campaign from 1914 to 1919, we've been very lucky to be able to bring that story together. And because a lot of stories have come out, nothing's ever been told about the New Zealand story of the mounted rifles. And also we really wanted to make it special because of the man and the horse, the sheer bond. We're not talking about the big glory battles and all that. We're talking about how the bondship between the man and the horse, and what he endured throughout that campaign, and also the personal stories of that has never been told about the mounted rifles, because we hear about the Western Front, we hear about Gallipoli, nothing's been really told about the New Zealanders and some of the Australians who served with us in the Desert Campaign. And so really for me, it's not about the money, it's about to keep that story alive for our future generations, no matter where. And for me, time is critical as my age, and I do have a few health issues. We won't talk about that, but I would we don't have time on our sides. Many people say yes, it takes many years to put something together. We don't have that time because all the friends who are involved in this, yes, we all got a limited time. So before we lose the history and before we lose this momentum, it's got to be important to put the film. 2, we've got all the resources like the uniforms of horses here in New Zealand and in Australia. We've got people who have donated a lot of time, energy and equipment to make this project, because we know anything that's a period time is very expensive. But we are fortunate enough to have all that equipment sitting there. I have it most personally, and plus Wes, who is my chap from Australia. We've got all the light horses in it. So there we're halfway there. Now we've just got to be able to get the running funds.
So what do we need to go to the next step?
We need what they call the final development stage before we actually start filming, is to have enough funds to go, and just not paying people for their time, but for travel, getting to the putting presentations together. We need to be able to go to that next step, to ready to hit for the summer mark or the summertime, to start the filming here in New Zealand and Australia this summer period, because time again is critical. We need that, and so there's a lot of development now to pull it all together, getting personnel and all that come together.
Do you have a financial vehicle that can raise money or can take donations?
Yes, we do have a financial vehicle that we'll be able to put into a holding company that all the rest of us, we have to sign a signature for everything that goes into that area.
But the stables were too small for Stella, and she wouldn't come in because her ears touch anything. She doesn't. She won't come in.
And you make the stuff yourself, do you, Terry?
Yes, most of it's all been made here and by my friends. That's all we've been doing. So we make it all up. This is my last lot of belts I've made. And we do the lot, so we're completely self-contained. So you've got all your immune weaving, the horse bandoliers, the uniforms, from the first lot of it's going through the war, and they're the first they left to go overseas, and then into the later ones. So we've got a big collection, you know, and we've got officers' uniforms, and that's when they went into the green piping as the mounted rifles. So with our trousers, we've got there all the mounted rifles.
They started off in the First World War, the uniforms started off, they were very haphazard. They weren't exactly the same. And as the war went on, they got more and more regulated about who had to wear what. And so they did change.
Yeah, and this is your World War I bridles. So we've got a whole pile of them all made up as well. So they're exactly what they had in World War I, these bridles. Bridles and halters and everything like that.
And
So,
they've folded up like
yeah.
that. And they've got
all the vintage stuff on them. We've got 6 sets here. Wes has got 15 in Australia. So that gives us all the authentics.
And where's the original saddles?
They're in the truck. I've got them all stacked away. But, so that's the bayonets. We had them made here in Christchurch. I've got another 20. That's all coming out of our pockets. Rifle boots, you name it. We've just got to keep going. So when we do all our ceremonial work, we've got enough here in New Zealand now to kit out 15 riders completely in the correct World War I uniforms.
And these.
Wow.
If you look at that,
New Zealand mounted rifles.
New Zealand mounted rifles.
Yeah. Who would carry that?
The officers.
Officers.
Okay, the officers.
Yeah, the officers carry them.
So you're going back when people wore swords to war.
Yeah.
And they still did, you know, they used them. So we've got 3 of them, and as I say, and our what we call bash uniforms, which are, I've got boxes and boxes of these bash uniforms for filming. So we can actually wreck them and use them for on film production. So we've got 30 of them. So we can cut them down, tore them around for to do the reenactment of the in the battle scenes with the guys when they had their short sleeves. They used to, one of the things that their light mounted rifles used to cut the sleeves. It was so hot, and they'd cut them off, and they were down in their puttees, you know, just to get into the uniform. They were the most ragtag lot of bunch you could ever imagine. So if you look at the movie The Light Horse, they look too clean, and they're always dressed properly. That wasn't such in the bloody war. Not with the Kiwis. They were a ragtag bunch, and you know, talk about bandoliers. They were that, but they were well, you know.
And they were dirty.
They never showed
because they didn't wash. I mean, the water was so precious in the desert. They couldn't wash.
Yeah.
And so, to be authentic, if you're making a movie, you've got to have dirty soldiers.
Yeah. Even when we did the Gunda guy, I actually got the guys to rub their hands in the dirt, rub their faces, just to do that shoot that we did last weekend. I said, "You're not clean, guys. Get in there." And they, "Oh," I said, "That's it." So I made them do that, and then they got really empowered into the whole project. They felt that that's what they were trying to represent back in 1914, 15. So that's how you got to have a crew who are really passionate. Come hell or high water, it will make it work for them. This is another hide of leather that we're going to make more bridles for World War I. So there will be another 10 bridles come out of that one, to which we make here. And we're repairing all the hats that we've got here to bring them all up to scratch for what we're doing. And as I say, I've just come back from Australia. I've unloaded all my gear on the floor and get it ready to be ready to go again. So that's what we're trying to do. So no matter what happens, we're still building the assets up to get ready to, as soon as the project starts, we're into it. And that's the mounted rifles hats that you've got, what
But if
Nikki's
you
got.
look at this, look at the detail on the front, the way they were made. And you think, that's incredible that detail was done for people that were going to be shot at. It's extraordinary, because we took
I had these badges here, Canterbury Yeoman,
Yep.
and that was actually cast here in Christchurch. We had them, They're made of brass,
Yes.
and we made them specially for the 100 years horses. So we've done the Targos, Aucklands, the Wellingtons, all that. So that gives us the detail, so we are keeping it as accurate as possible. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and putties, the whole 9 yards. So, yeah, between Nikki and I, we're just slowly building up the whole package.
The woman of Harden, actually,
made
the
them.
quilting group actually made these. So that was a really lovely input from the local community.
When you were actually preparing these props, they did those for you.
making these,
Yeah, they made them.
Oh, that's great.
What are these called?
Puggery. Yeah, puggeries.
Puggeries.
Yeah,
That's right.
Puggeries, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So,
I couldn't remember it, yeah.
And they said that was a huge amount of work to make.
Oh, I bet it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So we've got a whole box, suitcase full of them down there.
And we
To
had
do enough for
no
100.
pattern. They actually worked
We
out
had to
how
pull one to
do
pieces
it.
to make
Oh,
one.
really
Right.
clever.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So we're just continually building up. And I say, now that I've got a month spare, I'll be back into it, just making up more. So we've got a complete stock, because when we go to Australia to do the second half of the film, all this will go over to Australia, all the gear, except for the horses, because we've got the horses over there, and the light horse will be all ready, or the 7th light horse will have all their gear, uniforms. We don't have to buy any, because it's already there.
Great.
Oh, and these,
Oh, the windbreak, you got it?
these are what the horses wore.
Keep the
And
flies
they
on.
keep flies off their heads.
Yes.
We'll rub it in the dirt, make it a bit dirty.
Yeah,
And
yes.
They,
But clean for the Sinai.
Yeah.
they're amazing. And
Amazing.
it's actually amazing when you put them on the horses, because initially they don't like it. They don't like their vision impaired. But they soon learn.
Yeah. And it keeps the flies away, because in the desert the flies
Yes.
used to attack their
Oh,
eyes for
no, it's
moisture.
terrible.
Yeah. So that's what the both the light horse and the New Zealand Mounted had.
I remember reading too that they had leather bibs that they put on the horses when they were in the desert to stop them from eating sand.
Yes. Yes.
They need to protect their teeth.
Yeah, and they weren't eating the sand. They used to put the chart sack on that, and it used
Yes.
to be clipped to their halters,
Yes.
and they stopped them from eating the sand.
Yes.
Or when it came to feeding, they wouldn't dive into other buckets, so
Yes.
you'd clip the bags on, and the bags were just made out of old char sacks, whatever they had, with a piece of rope tied to their halter, because I'll show you what I mean. Just hang on. When the bridles, this here is the halter. It never came off the horse.
Okay.
But when they wanted to go out riding, all they had to do was slip this over the top of that, and it came a full bridle. And just a couple of buttons on the side. And you could do it in the dark. They could mount up in the dark, bang, bang, bang. They got a full headgear. But when they were finished, they'd whip that piece off, leave that on, bingo. And that did it. You know, virtually the horse wore that 90% of the time, unless they were out in the back in the the back base where they were recovering from injuries or anything like that. They would take them off. But generally, they wore that all the time. So that's it.
If they needed to move fast, they could get the horse.
You know, dress up, instant. Yeah. Okay, this takes 6 horses, plus the accommodation and all the saddles and all the military gear is all stored on board, so we take 6 units at a time. Come on. Come on, you guys. Come on. Robbie. Come on. Come on. This is Stella. She's the lead horse in the farm. There you go. Straight to the barnyard.
Where's my food?
Yeah.
They think
This
it's
is
feeding
Nipper.
time.
Yeah. Give
This
us
is Nipper.
food.
Hello.
This is Nipper.
Hello, Nipper.
Yeah.
Hello, Nipper.
What do you like?
Which horse is this one?
This is Jenny. She's not in the film. She's
Oh, she's-
retired.
Okay.
Getting very old.
She's very old, but she's very tight. Just what you like. And I've got 4 horses up in Waikura from my other mate.
Right.
Gee, they're starting to molt, Nikki. Look at that. They're starting to molt. Oh yeah, trust you to get into the food. Yeah, g'day. There's my baby. Okay. Oi! Go there.
Jenny, hello, Jenny.
Come on, back up. Back up. Back up.